There is a thin line between bravery and stupidity. Both involve risk. The difference only becomes clear later when the consequences arrive. And right now in Pakistan, whether people like it or not, the two sides locked in fight are both taking risks. From their own perspectives, they are being brave. From the outside, sometimes it looks reckless. But one thing is certain, this situation is no longer stable. And anyone pretending otherwise is lying either to themselves or to you. Welcome to Fourth Pillar Post, English weekly menace of Pakistani politics. For years, the country has been stuck in the same loop. Nothing has moved forward. Every time the system tries to stabilize, something pulls it back again. People keep asking why this government looks so weak, why decisions reverses overnight, why policies look like firefighting instead of strategy. The answer is actually simple. The system still hasn't solved the one big problem in front of it, PTI, the Imran Khan problem. And until it does, nothing will settle. But before we even talk about the internal mess, look at what's happening outside Pakistan. Because the external environment is one of the main reasons the pressure inside the country is rising or will be rising. See, Pakistan tried to position itself in the current global chessboard by leaning heavily towards American orbit. And that was not an American orbit, that was Trump's orbit daddy club. The idea was simple: stay useful, stay relevant, and get strategic breathing space over India. But the world has moved into a different phase. Trump's diplomacy, the Gaza situation, Middle East alignments, and Iran's negotiations. Everything is shifting at the same time. And Pakistan tried to insert itself into that moment through what looked like a proximity to the so-called peace board dynamics around Gaza. Now, here's the problem. If you sit in those rooms, you are expected to deliver something. Troops, leverages, political cover, something. But Pakistan cannot actually afford to do any of those things. The economy can't handle $1 billion. The military can't risk Gaza or disarming Hamas. The public would explode over it. So you end up in the worst possible position in geopolitics. Visible commitment without a real capability. That's why you saw the strange dancings, meetings, statements, praise from Trump, but then suddenly distancing when the idea of actual participating in Gaza operation started circulating. Pakistan tried to step back quietly. You can see the optics of the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif in this Gaza meeting, in this peace board meeting. On paper, that sounds like a smart move. In reality, it comes with a cost. Relevance drops. And the relevance is everything in power politics. Countries don't get punished for weakness, they get punished for becoming irrelevant. At the same time, the global environment itself is becoming unstable. America is dealing with Iran negotiations while simultaneously threatening escalation. Israel is trying to reshape Middle East, regional alliances. Look at the UAE in Saudi Arabia. They are clearly competing for influence. Turkey is positioning itself as a counterweight between, trying to save Saudi Arabia. And that's why Saudi Arabia is doing the same way by tying itself defense ties with Pakistan, because Israel, UAE and India are already making the nexus. See, Russia is warning about the wider war if Iran escalates. Europe is rethinking defense deals after watching the Ukraine situation or the Greenland. Even India, despite its political theaters or theatrics because of Modi, is quietly securing long-term defense manufacturing deals with France and critical minerals deals with Brazil. And Pakistan is still figuring out whether it should be pro-America, pro-Trump, pro-China, neutral, or just improvising day by day and giving all to the Trump. Crypto, which will attract sanctions, Roosevelt Hotel, which is our asset, but America is investing in that asset, in that own country, not giving a penny to our country. It's a joke. And it will turn out to be Trump's investment at the end of the day. This is where the internal crisis becomes dangerous, because when foreign policy becomes confused, domestic power struggles intensify. Inside Pakistan right now, there are essentially two schools of thoughts within the power structure. One says, leave Khan where he is. isolate him, let him weaken his party, weaken public energy. The system will continue and slowly absorbing the shock. The other views says the opposite. This cannot continue indefinitely. The cost is rising. Look at the KPK, politically, internationally, institutionally. Look at the Article 243. At some point, you have to diffuse the situation, and that means some kind of agreement. Between those two scams are dozens of intermediaries trying to manufacture a deal. Politicians, lawyers, journalists, back channels, family connections, party figures, everyone trying to push things towards settlement. But here's the problem no one wants to say openly. The person in the center of this equation is not cooperating with the person of the other end. If Khan wanted a deal, one would already exist. Pakistan has never struggled to produce political deals when all sides want them. The reason the situation keeps stalling is that the core conditions are not acceptable to Khan. And them offering the deal shows that they want to. And that creates a strange dynamics. The establishment is trying pressure for a deal, one way or the other. The party is getting confused. Intermediaries are appearing, narratives are trying to shift, and then everything will collapse back to the starting point because Khan is not agreeing. See, take the health controversy of Imran Khan. Suddenly, the country is debating eyesight measurements like it's a national medical conference. First, we hear dramatic claims about severe damage. Then we heard government doctors say things are basically fine. Then independent doctors were not allowed to meet him, are still not allowed. Meetings are getting delayed. Court's orders are appearing late. Explanations are changing. They are underplaying all this episode. And ask yourself a simple question. If everything is normal, why are they blocking the communication? Even with his own personal doctors. Because communication is the real battlefield right now. A message coming out of the prison at the wrong time can trigger a momentum. That's the fear. A momentum is already starting to appear in places where the system least wants it. Right now, they are afraid of it now. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And that's why they are trying to manage now. Because the power center involved Khyber Pakhtunkhwa in Punjab, and now the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is trumping over the Punjab. That's a messy situation. What's happening there is still messy. It's still disorganized, it's still party controlled by the political actors who themselves don't know how far they want to go. See, roads are getting blocked, protests were rising, and suddenly the leaders tried to slow down things. It looked chaotic because it is chaotic. Because PTI doesn't itself control what is being unleashed right now. But even chaos creates pressure, especially when threats like governor rules start floating around. If that step happens in the governor rule, it doesn't just become a provincial administrative move. It becomes a national trigger. Other provinces start calculating their own vulnerability. Political alliances will shift, narratives will harden. And this is why the system keeps hesitating at the very last moment. Every action opens another risk. At the same time, the political class hasn't helped yet too. Instead of showing strategic maturity, we are watching petty positionings. Maryam Nawaz acting like a Punjab is a PR project. Zardari is quietly preparing the ground for Bilawal's future. They are all exploiting establishment. Smaller parties are trying to stay relevant. Look at the MQM, with whichever side looks stronger. And then suddenly you have PTI itself, still struggling to organize around a coherent strategy. Internal divisions, messaging confusions, reliance on an emotional momentum instead of structural planning, moments where competence was required and the party simply wasn't competent enough. Yet even with all those weaknesses, the system still hasn't been able to neutralize the central issue. And that tells you how deep the stalemate is. People often misunderstand Pakistan's political dynamics. They expect revolutions or clear turning points. That rarely happens here. What happens instead is prolonged stagnation followed by sudden shocks. Bangladesh didn't separate because one protest succeeded. It happened after years accumulated instability. Balochistan didn't become volatile overnight. It built slowly. Pakistan right now feels like it's entering that kind of pressure phase. Terrorism is rising again. Economic exhaustion is there, political mistrust is there, provincial tensions are growing, international uncertainties after the Gaza decisions, all of it layered on the top of each other. And then you add the leadership class that still thinks optics can replace strategy. You see a 10 billion rupee aircraft being discussed in a country where millions are struggling to afford basic necessities. You see ministers boasting about the meetings abroad while foreign policy leverages keep shrinking. You see police encounters, political revenges, bureaucratic fears, courts fear, and a media environment that oscillates between silence and propaganda. So when you say the country feels hopeless, it's not just emotional exaggeration. There is a structural fatigue building in the system. But here's the twist. System under pressure do not always collapse. Sometimes they adapt in ways that surprise everyone involved. Right now, you can already see the search for an exit route has begun. Quiet conversations, narrative adjustments, political repositions. Some actors preparing for confrontation and others are preparing for compromise. And somewhere in the middle of all sits the one variable no one fully controls: Imran Khan's decisions. Because the truth is simple: if he bends, the system stabilizes quickly. If he doesn't, the pressure keeps building until something else breaks. Not necessarily tomorrow, not necessarily dramatically, but eventually. Pakistan isn't moving toward a neat resolution. It's moving towards a collision. And when that collision happens, people who thought they were managing the crisis may discover they were only delaying it.